because the main topic we got to talk about tonight is the Giants Night with Legends. So they released a video just 7 o'clock, just 2 hours ago here, guys.
2 hours ago.
Yeah, so we're on the ball for one. Look at this, Rob.
Yeah.
We are breaking news.
Did it.
For those of y'all that are on, a lot of the different stuff here, I'll be able to put it in YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. It looks like real quick the link if you guys want to watch it after the show, because we encourage you to. We're going to go over some of the information here that happened, but I'm not going to do the spoiler. Like, I'm going to give you play-by-play every single thing here. Like, Rob and I aren't about that. We want you guys to watch this thing. It's fun. It's nice to reminisce about 100 freaking years of history, guys. By the way, 8 championships in 100 years. That's an 8% chance, by the way, for those who have trouble with math. That's pretty damn good. I'm sorry. That actually really is. Think about that. 32 teams in the damn league. There weren't that many back in the day, obviously, but still.
Like the Vikings, how many do they have?
0.
Oh, okay.
They might have. Yeah, no. I don't think they have anything part of the Super Bowl. Anyway, let's get into the Giants here and everything that happened here. So, again, the event was the 20th of June at MSG. And they basically condensed it down to a 1-hour special here for YouTube. Literally all the living legends guys have appeared. Like it's crazy.
It was really cool.
It's crazy the amount of special, ex and current Giants that were part of this program here. The whole evening started actually on there about had Eli and Sims talking about going to Disney. Because, who doesn't love going to Disney? Remember, Sims is the guy who started that. Sims was the guy. There's a lot of things in Giants history that Giants were the first ones to do, and that's one of them. Then, of course, LT comes in. So you probably have the top 3 fan favorite Giants of all time.
And LT was pretty funny through the night.
Oh, he was. He always is.
Yeah.
Love him or hate him, because I know there's people that don't like him. Obviously, he's got a little bit of a checkered past at times. The guy's entertaining as all hell. And I think we all know Eli is also entertaining as all hell. And Sims is a little more of a dry humor. He's like that British comedy kind of thing, but he's also, got a good sense of humor about him there. As I think we might have lost Rob there. He's frozen. Either that or he's in deep thought. But the event was hosted by Bob Poppa. Of course, it's got to be hosted by Bob Poppa. It's the voice of the Giants there. Who else but Bob Poppa would be the guy to go ahead and be the guy to give us all the information here. So the whole thing starts off with the first guest there, once they start to the actual video of what happened there that night on stage with John Mara, which is a fitting start to the evening there at that point to bring out the guy who literally is the face of the franchise for all intents and purposes there. I heard you, Rob. Is that you? Are you back? Rob is back. Let's get him back in here. Nope, we lost him again. Rob's back out. But yeah, fitting to get him literally the face of the franchise there, because he's been, the Mariners have owned this league for the 100 years at that point there, basically. So, it's very fitting to have him out there. He started out by thanking the fans. I was a little shocked he didn't thank them by handing out medium Cokes to everybody in the stands. I was so expecting, something a little corny like that at that point there, because the Giants have done it recently. But no, he did a great job, I thought, talking about some of the history of the team there, talking about the olden days there when his dad ran the team for many, many years, talking about, things going forward at that point as well. So, good job, I thought, by him. They talked about the Tisch family and when they got out of the organization there back in the 90s, basically giving them credit for making the team as a more professional business overall. Steve Tisch was there at the event. He was in the audience. They showed him briefly on screen, but he didn't actually speak. Let's be honest. People aren't there for the ownership, though. They're there for the players. They're there for the coaches. So, Sean O'Hara and Peter Schrager were brought out to be co-hosts. They were Bob Poppa later on after that. Both those, of course, are Jersey boys. Of course, Sean O'Hara, not just a media member, but also the ex-Giants center there during a lot of the Eli years. So good to see those guys out there. Peter Schrager was actually the guy doing all the interviews that you saw kind of in between the sets there, as they have some backstage interviews that are going on. Pete Gogolak was brought out there to talk about his days as a Giants kicker. He was the leading scorer in Giants history, which, to be honest, I didn't know that off the top of my head. I figured it probably was a kicker, not a stat that I really keep track of too much because it is typically a kicker that does that. They kick a lot of field goals, they kick extra points. They're involved with pretty much every scoring play that you have throughout a game. And 9 years as a kicker is a decent amount of time there. So, Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll were next to help talk about the upcoming season there. What I thought was kind of interesting is Joe Schoen mentioned, but at least by the segment they showed, made it a huge part of their part there to talk about the addition of Brian Burns, kind of talking about how, pass rush. That's a big part of the Giants' history, obviously, and talking about that being some of their thought process with that move. Even talked about how he's been in contact a lot with Orny Accorsi. Of course, the old Giants GM there was big architect of these championship teams, even though he was gone at that point when the wins started happening under the Eli regime there. As I call it, I know obviously it wasn't Eli's regime there, but star of the team there. And then Daboll just kind of talked briefly. It was kind of interesting. He just promised basically that they're going to work their butts off, and to put a nice lead and say butts, obviously, to provide the best product they can on the field. I thought it was interesting though. It was kind of like tampered down a little bit. I mean, we all know. Listen, we all know the Giants are not going to probably win a championship this year. That's pretty obvious. Like, I think we could all agree to that as Giant fans. Obviously we all hope that that's going to happen, but it's not exactly something you expect in the cards there, as Rob is officially back again. There he is. The man, the myth, the legend, Rob himself. So, it's interesting that Brian Daboll didn't talk about, we're going to go out there and put a great team out there for you guys. We're going to go out there and beat some of the teams. Like, it wasn't like that. It's like, we're going to work our tails off and put the best product we can out there. I thought that was kind of an interesting way of wording it. It's kind of like, we're excited. We're going to work hard, but don't expect too much.
Yeah, it was.
Like, don't get me wrong. His tone didn't mean it that way, but his wording was very cautious.
Yes, he's always been that way. He's always been very vague of his message.
Yes.
And he didn't say it was going to be a bad team. He didn't say it was going to be a good team. He just kind of said, this is what we got, and we're going to make the best of what we got.
It's like when you're on like one of those cooking shows and they give you a couple of ingredients, you got to figure out what to do with it. He's like, this is what I got. We're going to do what we can with it.
Yeah.
I don't know what I got here, but
I guess we're making a jambalaya.
Exactly. Bobby Okereke and Kayvon Thibodeau were next. I thought that was kind of interesting. Those two were considered the current players that they wanted to bring out. I mean, obviously, as much as Daniel Jones is, the quarterback, and quarterback's usually your star, obviously he's a little bit of a mixed reaction from fans he would get. But I kind of expected Dexter Lawrence and Andrew Thomas to be the guys. I mean, those are the guys that are the two biggest names on the Giants there. So
I mean, you would think so. I mean, we also don't know. They didn't say anything about could have been scheduling thing, this and that. But
listen, you make time for that. That's a big thing.
You
make time for that. I'm sorry. And I gotta say as well. Listen, we're going to talk about a couple of things apparently today. I never thought we'd talk about. We're going to talk We're going to talk a little bit of fashion. Because am I the only one who thought that Kayvon Thibodeau?
I was going to bring that up.
I thought he'd come out in like a freaking like amazing like suit, like something like you know what I mean? Like,
he looked like he was half San Diego ready for the beach and half.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, right. Like
he might have went like it could have been like maybe he's going fishing.
Yes. He had like a Giants hat that had like some kind of design on the edges there, and he had he had a button down shirt and khakis. Like, this is a guy who is kind of known for trying to win the award for closest dress to Cam Newton. Like, this is what he does. Like, he wears weird things. I'm not wrong on that. Like, seriously, like, I swear.
It's really funny because I always said I expect him to come out like Cam Newton.
Yeah, like I fully expect that he goes clothes shopping at the Goodwill with Steven Tyler and Cam Newton. Like, that's the kind of way he dresses. But I mean, listen, it's not my style of dressing. I'm more of a jeans and a t-shirt guy. If I'm going to wear a suit, it's going to be a nice, simple tailored suit at that point there, like old school, but
Yeah.
finally worn, you know what I mean? Like that kind of thing. But he has his own fashion sense. I was just, like I said, was a little shocked that he didn't come out with something
You
a
would
little
think.
oomph, because that was
That's
a moment
like,
he got a little oomph,
that was kind of like, if he was a dad, that's the outfit he would wear.
Yes. Like the guy who doesn't dress up usually that had to dress up all of a sudden. It's like, what do I got? Here's a pair of khakis. Here's a flannel shirt with a collar. I'm good. Like that's what.
Make sure it's ironed.
It's like when the husband is forced to go out to a fancy dinner with the wife, and it's like, I don't want to dress up.
Yeah, or they have to go to Christian for the first time in like 10 years because
yes.
Like, I don't have a button-up shirt. What do we got? Dust this off.
Yeah, like that's what it kind of felt like. I said, weird. I didn't think we'd be talking about fashion really ever on the show, but like I said, I just thought it was a weird kind of takeaway there. Again, not knocking him, be comfortable. Like I'm that guy. Like I said, I'm a jeans and a t-shirt guy usually. It's just not what I expected considering what we know of Kayvon. Anyway, let's get off the fashion stuff here.
Yeah.
Backstage, apparently LT had asked Kayvon about how many sacks he had this past season. Great. Yeah, listen, and this quote's been going around since that night because Kayvon mentioned it on the stage, obviously. But it was funny. He said, so LT apparently, like I said, backstage, he asked him how many sacks he had last year. He said 11.5. And then LT asked him if he only played in 3 games, which I thought was not only funny because of the fact that, LT can say that kind of stuff and get away with it, and like nobody else can. But it's also, it's kind of like he only did play 3 games, because you think about the 2 Commanders games and the Jets games were like half a sack for the season. I mean, seriously, in all fairness, like, not trying to be a jerk, but I think I'm bashing Kayvon here. Like, everybody watches the show on a regular basis knows I'm a big Kayvon fan. I just wish he get a little better at setting the edge and stopping the run from going outside of him. But he's a young player, and that's going to happen, But yeah, like I said, I thought it was funny because I think in his head he did have that little bit of truth part of it coming out. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
I think he was thinking that when he said that personally. I don't want to speak for LT. I'm not going to sit there and pretend like I know that for sure, but I thought it was pretty funny. Next up, Bill Parcells and Tom Coughlin, the 2 legendary Giants coaches there from the 4 Super Bowls that they went to and won. Interesting enough that while they were both up there, they have 4 times the rings of the Eagles. Just pointing it out there.
You may have put that in the comments.
I did, actually. I did. I did. I was hardcore in that comments section there at that point. Listen, I got to wrap the show, man. Got to wrap the show. In fact, some people watching live might be from there because I invited everybody, I think, twice during that show. I'm waiting for the Giants to boot me out. Like, what is this guy doing? Like, you can't advertise in here. We did it. We did it.
Whoops.
But yeah, so really nice to see those 2 together. Obviously, those 2 work together. Coughlin was the wide receivers coach under Parcells there too as well. So they obviously have a pretty good partnership, besides the fact that I'm sure they show up to a lot of Giants events together, because you're going to have a Giants event with great players and coaches in the past. You're probably going to invite Coughlin and Parcells. Let's be honest.
Probably, yeah.
You're probably going to. Hopefully Tom Coughlin can see him again in Canton one day. I still can't believe this man's not in the Hall of Fame. 2 Super Bowl rings, the head coach. You should automatically be in the Hall of Fame. I'm sorry. Should automatically. Yeah.
Yeah. That's there's not many coaches out there.
No, there's not. There's really not. There's a very short list there. So anyway, yeah. So the 2 of them were up there talking. Parcells talked about how important it was for the veterans to accept the young players. Obviously, when the Giants won, it was a nice mixture there, so to speak, there of veterans and young guys there. And it was a nice thing to see them all, because they still have that kind of relationship. You see these guys from those Parcells teams come together, and they're acting like they're still like haven't missed a beat, and they've been seeing each other on a regular basis, and they probably. But they probably have seen each other a decent amount of time since,
Yes, besides, that's fair enough to say. Like, there's a lot of history with that team, and
100 years of it, in fact.
Yeah. Well, I just meant like as that 80s, early 90s team, like where they come to. Like,
I love the 80s. Strikes back.
VH1.
That show was amazing. But yeah, like I said, it's nice to see that kind of stuff there. And then Coughlin talked about basically the importance of creating a team mentality, kind of alluded to the fact that when he took over, there was a lot of me. And I don't mean they're practicing singing. Like it was very much
me,
la 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 la. But yeah,
we
very much. That's what
we.
don't say wee one more time. We'll get banned by YouTube for profanity.
But
yeah,
saying yes a lot in French.
We, but yeah, they, he talked about that. And I think that was nice for him to acknowledge, the team's part. And also, it's kind of like that's the humble man when you're sitting there like, how do you change things around? Oh, well, the team developed a winning personality and developed a team chemistry. Not I did this, I did that. Like that's a classy move to go ahead and do that.
Yeah, he's always been that guy.
Yes, he has. Then they cut over to LT and Sims. So Sims said his success was because of LT. LT then joked around that Sims always just trying to chuck the ball down the field. The friendship between those two is just it's so obvious.
Yeah,
it's awesome to see. Like there's people you work with that like you're done working, you don't see them again, you don't deal with them again, you don't want to deal with them again. It's nice that these guys seem to enjoy their time with each other. It really is, because they don't have to be near each other anymore. They're not contractually obligated to.
No.
They don't got to joke around with each other. Like all that doesn't have to be there.
No, so and you can see that they still have the connection. They still do, and they just bust each other's chops nonstop.
Exactly. And I'm all.
And that's what it was. Yeah,
I could have watched the two of them just chit chat with each other for the whole hour, just there alone. So, but yeah. So then they bring out Sims, Eli, Carson, and LT onto the stage there. Probably, at least living wise, the top 5 New York Giants. Obviously we can get into the olden days and who's still around from there at that point. Like the Frank Giffords of the world and all. But as far as the living Giants, that's probably the top 5 most popular Giants there at that point on that stage at one time. It was really nice. I don't want to go too much of what they talked about because, again, guys, I really do want you guys to watch it. It was a fun time.
Yeah, I was about to say, I really want to bring up some of the stuff that Sims and LT said, but it's like
it's a proud moment as a Giant fan to sit there and go, okay, here's the team that I root for more than any other team, not just in football, but any other team in sports in general.
Yes, 100%.
All this damn team has done. Like it's really impressive what this franchise has done overall there. But yeah, so then they cut to interviewing Carl Banks, talking about his experience in joining the team after being drafted. Next group they bring out is Brian Kelly and George Martin. So bringing out some really OG at that point there. And, they're brought out next with LT, Carson, and Parcells still out there joking around as well. Then Phil McConkey, Joe Morris, Mark Bavaro, Otis Anderson, and Carl Banks joined them on the stage there. So
yes, my old friend Otis comes out.
Oh yes, we know you and your Otis Anderson story. Should we have you tell the Otis Anderson story?
Nope.
No, we should not. We should
nope,
not. Nope. In fact, I don't even think that's on YouTube or anything. Maybe we'll have to put that on there as its own segment. Rob tells the dramatic telling of the Otis Anderson story.
The greatest story since Gilgamesh.
and the crazy thing is, I don't even think we have the video of us having that chit chat that day at that point. So we'd have to get a storyboard. I'll have an AI do AI. Please make a video for this.
Well, here I meet Otis.
Listen, we all kind of. I think I met of the guys that are out there tonight. I said last week. It feels like tonight since we watched the video tonight. But the guys that were on the video tonight, I've met Carl Banks, Jason Sehorn, and Tiki Barber. And all 3 of them are very nice. But we talked about before. Sehorn's funny because he's just definitely, at the time at least, I know he's been a few years since I've seen him. He might be a changed man, but back then he was definitely very friendly with women. I'll put it that way. Anyway,
he knows what he likes.
Yeah, exactly. Listen, it is what it is. Yeah. And he still has the great hair because Jason Sehorn was actually brought up in the next group. I could not believe it. I'm like, damn, what happened to me compared to him? Like, whatever shampoo this man is using, I need to pick up a bottle of this Pert Plus or whatever he's using.
Head and shoulders or whatever he's got.
he still has the same hair. Like he's definitely, it's gotten some grays in there at that point, as we all have over the years there. But you
Speak for
figure, and
yourself.
again, I didn't even plan on talking about his age, but you got to figure he's probably, since he played the '90s, he's probably his early 50s at this point. I gotta imagine. He is.
Yeah,
We can look it up real quick. Obviously, that's
I would say his
easy.
early 50s. It makes sense because if he's drafted, let's say 90. Yeah,
53. So yeah, like I said, I was right on. There we go. So anyway, Seahorn, Tiki Barber, and of course the man, the myth, the legend, Amani Toomer, the best receiver in Giants football history. I know people give me slack about this. Let me be very careful the way I word this because OBJ fans get really quickly to get upset about it. The greatest receiver of all time. OBJ was the most electric receiver of all time. There's a difference because of longevity. But yeah,
that wise, number wise, Amani, and he told some great stories.
Yeah, and they all did. Yeah. Everybody out there had, you can tell, had a little fun at that point there. But they talked primarily about the NFC Championship game against the Vikings. And obviously that's, if you want to go non-Super Bowl, that's probably the biggest Giant win in Giants history, because to just absolutely destroy the Vikings, who at the time were like, greatest offense in the history of the NFL. They're talking the Randy Moss, the Chris Carters, what's the name of the third receiver, that Reed, who was pretty good as well.
Yeah.
They had a real, and it just had a really amazing team at that point. And let's be honest, the Giants were not considered that kind of team. And the Vikings just got demolished. I mean, a shutout, like an amazing domination. Like it was a great game to watch there. I really did like the fact that I thought it was extremely classy that Strahan made it a point to give Jim Fossil credit for getting the Giants back on the right path at that point during that segment as well, because obviously Jim Fossil passed away, I think last year, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
So obviously it was nice to see him talked about, remembered, because of the fact that, obviously he can't do that himself anymore. So it's nice that he left that kind of, lasting memory with a great player like Michael Strahan. Was like, hey, listen, we gotta at least mention this guy real quick, because he did a lot for the franchise and meant a lot to us. That was a classy move, I thought, really.
It really was. And he was also, I don't want to downplay what he said, but you could also tell that he's one of those guys that still has that TV presence.
Oh yeah.
When he talks about everything, like he was very well spoken in how he, expressed himself.
Yes.
If you will. Like some of these guys were joking around, talking down, but he sat down and just real fast. Jim Fossil. Like, gotta give this man credit because he's the guy that got us there.
Now, I would have loved Strahan to say Sally sells seashells by the seashore. We're saying. Oh my gosh, the way it's funny because you even know it's him talking because that gap definitely makes a difference in his voice.
It gets SpongeBob jealous.
It's his trademark, though. It's his trademark.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure that gap gets wider every year.
If it starts closing down, he gets the pry bars out and just but yeah. So next up, they cut to a interview with Victor Cruz talking about how special it was playing for the Giants. Then they bring out Snee, Cruz, and Justin Tuck there, and then added Eli coming back talking about the 2007 Super Bowl with O'Hara and Strahan obviously still out there. That was nice to see those guys there talking a little about the helmet catch there, which we'll talk about in a moment as well.
Yeah,
Eli was funny as hell during that bit because Eli was getting on Chris Snee. Because
he was all over him.
And I forgot this because it's been so many years since I've watched it like that to look at that kind of stuff. He's like getting on Snee, like, who are you blocking? He's like, I thought you were a receiver because you weren't even near to the player. I thought you were wide open. I almost threw you the ball. And then they show the clip later on. You're like, yep, that's what was going on. Only Eli can get that kind of the way that stuff and nobody gets mad. George Martin also stopped at one point to give credit to head trainer Ronnie Barnes, who has really been with the team for all 100 years, I think, at this point, it feels like, at least. I mean, the guy's, it's been like, 45 years he's been with the Giants.
Just about, yeah.
Obviously, he's not the most popular with some of the fans because they think he's been around too long and we need a new trainer. But listen, the guy's been around forever. You got to give him kudos, regardless of what you think of his current practices at that point, because he gets some of the blame for all the injuries at that point. I don't think that's quite fair necessarily, but he does. Being them out in the building, it's kind of hard to say who I blame, except for the Giants and Jets overall for having turf still on the field. But that's a talk for a different day.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Bob Poppa announced the results of the greatest play in Giants history, which was the helmet catches we talked to a couple of episodes ago, and talked about the play itself a minute ago. They showed the catch, and again, of course, Eli goes back to going after Chris Snee again for just standing around not blocking anybody during the play. David Tyree was then brought out. He talked about the famous catch. It was kind of nice to bring him out because let's be honest, guys, David Tyree was a special teamer who made it to the Pro Bowl. Like, it's not that he had a bad career, but without that catch, David Tyree is not even talked about whatsoever.
He's a forgotten giant. Like,
yeah, exactly. Like,
listen, we all love Isaiah Hodgins right now, but 10 years from now, we're gonna forget that name.
Yeah, I wouldn't even say Isaiah Hodgins. He played so little. It's like it wouldn't even be Isaiah Hodgins. He would like. Not quite Gunnar Olszewski either, but like he just didn't play that all. He got 100 yards in the season. Like that's what kind of guy he was. He was primarily a special teamer. But it was nice then to bring him out in that kind of way, which I thought was very appropriate for the evening at that point because it was a huge play. One thing I'll say is a little disappointed though is they and again I wasn't there. If anybody was there and wants to kind of shed a little more light on it, I thought that the fact that they kind of skipped over entirely, I felt like the 2011. Was a little wrong. They didn't really. I would have loved to let's play a highlight of the Mario Manningham sideline catch or something like that. Let's talk about that. Maybe bring out Ahmad Bradshaw, talk about him falling into the end zone because he was trying to stop himself. Like there was a lot of fun moments in that game as well, and it didn't really talk about it. But at least in that video, I don't know. Again, I don't know if the whole live event had that or not. So the last thing they did show is Bob Poppa then brought out 100-year-old fan Lou Friese to end the program as well, which was a nice little touch there to get a 100-year-old fan who's basically been around since the very beginning at that point there. It'd be kind of nice to hear. And again, maybe they had it at that event. They were trying to condense, obviously, for this hour-long video. But I would kind of been interested to hear some stories of, him growing up watching the Giants and stuff like that there. Listen, if you got any old-timer Giant fans around, and I don't mean me and Rob, we're not that old yet. Like, feel free to ask them this kind of stuff, guys. Because, listen, once this history, this generation is gone, the history is gone. There's not many guys around or gals around that, we're fans of the Giants 50 years ago, 60 years ago, let alone, 100 years ago, like this guy. But I would have loved to hear some of the stories of him growing up and going to his first game, who his favorite player was and stuff like that. Like, that would have been the cool thing to get. I hope that somebody at least interviewed him at some point to get that kind of information because once info like that's gone, dude, it's gone. It's gone. Like we talked about some of the old time Giant players and, obviously we did a whole list last year and a lot of the positions on best of and stuff like that. And we learned a lot of the players I think that you and I didn't know because we just weren't around in the 1940s and all that, Again, we're not that old.
You realize that football is a different game when your quarterback is also your running back and also would catch the ball and then block. Yeah,
and like we had what was the one year? One of the old championships we had there. Where we had like 10 offensive linemen make the Pro Bowl somehow.
It's like our whole line,
including the head coach. It's like, what the hell? But like I said, it's nice that they acknowledged him in that way as well there. So again, guys, we put the link in the comments section there for you all on Facebook, YouTube, and on Twitch, since it lets us do that. So if you're not on one of those platforms, feel free to go check it out there. While you're there, of course, give us a like. We'd definitely appreciate that as well, especially on YouTube there.
Thanks for listening to Two Giant Goofballs, a New York Giants podcast. We appreciate your support.
Thanks so much.